Hi everyone and welcome review at 7th episode, and I'm very happy to be joined by Alicia Chang, Dr. Alicia Chang, I should say. And many of you hopefully know Alicia from her previous very popular and well-received articles on EDUKWEST, and so I think she is a very knowledgeable person in education. I always have fun when we Skype, and I think she'll bring nice scientific or the researcher's point of view to some of the topics we'll be talking about today. And also I think that we can already announce it, so she'll have her own show on EDUKWEST from January on. And maybe Alicia, so people not familiar with your bio yet, just give us a quick sort of bullet points. What should people know about you, and maybe also talk a little bit about what will be the concept of your EDUKWEST show.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Alicia Chang. I am currently the Director of Science and Learning at AiryLabs. We're a startup in Palo Alto, and we design educational games for children ages 5 through 13. So, in my job, I use my academic training, which is in cognitive and developmental psychology. I received my Ph.D. from UCLA in 2008, and I've studied a variety of topics, including language development, bilingualism, math and science learning, and I'm really excited to be a part of EDUKWEST. And so what I'll be doing with my show is interviewing startup founders in the ed and tech space. We'll give you a little preview of their lives and then take you behind the scenes of the learning behind the technology, and I'm really excited. I have some exciting guests already kind of in the pipeline, so it'll be a really cool show.
I am sure it will. Great. So let's start off with our topics. So everybody, I'm a little bit exhausted, however, from traveling and so on. However, I think with the help of Alicia, it'll be an exciting show, and we have a whole bunch of topics today. And I would say we start off with some news around Facebook. So the first thing is that Facebook is piloting a new groups feature, and that basically means that only users with .edu email addresses can view those groups. And it is sort of, Alicia, you will give me my take on that, because we have sort of two interpretations, I suppose. Is Facebook going back to its roots, maybe, and therefore being sort of well positioned in this whole education debate, online education specifically, the opportunities to do something with learning, technology, internet is becoming way more popular in the public debate, not only in the States, but I guess all over the world, but particularly, of course, in the US? Or is it that as we have dedicated services on Facebook in education, for example, Integral, everybody was sort of criticizing Facebook itself cannot be used anymore in a really educational sense. It's too wide, too chatty, maybe. So maybe a service like Integral or a few others, have they been too successful so that Facebook may have thought, maybe we want to have this chunk of the market for ourselves again, so we build this new groups feature and therefore cater our educational users and grow that user base. What's your take on that?
Well, I've been on Facebook since 2004, so that was back when it was an EDU exclusive kind of club, though the use of Facebook has never really been for educational specific things, now there are a lot of other social networks that kind of take into consideration like filtering and making sure that, let's say, teachers can contact their students, but there's no personal information exchange. So I think that they're aware that there are other applications but I'm not sure if it's too big already. But I do see the possibility that their existing user base can already create certain groups that they can do more actual classroom engagement with and do like real-time chats or streaming videos, because I think that a lot of their technology is really effective when they do like live streaming interviews, for example, and they have such a wide user base that maybe it's already built in, and given the right technology, I think it could work, but they definitely have a lot of strong competitors already.
Is that then a threat to integral, sort of as the Facebook in higher ed, but much more dedicated and a little bit more, always in the Facebook discussion, safe? Or do you think there's enough room for various different players who all have a solid user base?
I think that if each company carved out their niche kind of, I guess, spin to their product, they definitely have a chance, because Facebook has, its detractors as well as its supporters. So I don't think that they're necessarily going to take over and kind of swallow up the, I guess, smaller companies. But everyone needs to definitely keep up with things like privacy and the possibility of integrating with other platforms, like having streaming lectures and things like that. So I think it'll be competitive for sure.
And in the case of Integral, of course, they are built upon Facebook, so that might be a little bit more threatening than for others. Yeah. Okay, but we also see sort of more a little bit with the integration of Skype into Facebook, now as Skype is part of Microsoft. I think a little bit more of not partnering, maybe in a very specific sense, but let's say working together on some things. So Microsoft launches Social as a social network also for students and built upon Facebook as well. So it's very prototypey, I'd say. So I don't know too much of it now, but designed for students studying social media, and then, I quote, to extend their educational experience and rethink how they learn and communicate. So it sounds as if the focus is more on social consumption, how to do that, maybe curation as an aspect, rather than communication, which is maybe more Facebook. What's your feelings about now Microsoft learns how to be social?
I've seen Microsoft recently do a big push towards education in schools, and they're even like daily deals for schools and things like that. I think that they are trying to make a comeback, so we'll see if this is a way to do it. I think I'm not convinced yet about Microsoft being able to enter the social arena. I think they've tried some different things, but it hasn't quite worked out for them yet. But we'll see. I can see the style changing too, with like the animated videos and things like that. So if they can kind of figure out a different way to do things, maybe we'll really see them come back into the educational arena. And of course, they have their obvious Gates Foundation connection. So if they could work together and figure something out, I'm sure they have the resources and the technology to do it.
Of course, Microsoft as a company, the Gates Foundation itself, both still have tons of money to spend. So, but you're right saying that in various different areas in technology, just when we think of smartphones, for example, Microsoft has to, keep up and see how to incorporate certain trends like social, and I think also in communication, and so how do people want to consume these things, and so it will probably be about getting the right people on board and working together with the right partners. And I mean, as much as Facebook is criticized, and I don't know about Facebook's involvement precisely in the social network, also Microsoft's social network, but I mean, undoubtedly they have a lot of success, and Facebook's popularity proves that they have done some things right. So it might be, of course, something beneficial and very interesting, or potentially very interesting for Microsoft.
Yes, definitely.
Then next big company, Google. So college tips by Google. So depending on where you are in your educational career, Google's dedicated website gives you tips, products, and services to help and make your life easier. So I think I have talked about this a little bit already. So we have, of course, this whole big space or growing space of adaptive learning, adaptiveness, intelligent products. On the other hand, curation done by humans, also by machines. And if you were in this position today, would you find it helpful? Would it be something you like to consult, or at least have a website? As I mean, online is so huge, and even education online, very scattered. You find one piece of information there, another over there. So you have, of course, to invest a lot of time and research to get the best pieces of information and data for you. So a good initiative, a good idea, or with Google, do we also always have to see that giving students that service, they get some very precious data at a very important step in their lives, and sort of very shaped and very dedicated at the same time?
I can see it both ways, actually. Obviously, I'm a big fan of having lots of data and looking at patterns and things like that. Also, on the more, I guess, human side, I would have loved to have this resource throughout my college career, and they even have like a job seekers tab, which I think is really important, and you can share tips with other students. So there's like the social part of it, and there's also the data mining part of it. So I think that the data is actually a really helpful thing. They could kind of isolate the main ideas that are really important for people, and whatever other information they have, I think it will be helpful for a lot of people. And so that also brings us back to Google moving towards also a social model of communication. So we have a lot of things going on here. Obviously, their algorithms are really sophisticated, and people are definitely interested in how they mine for information, because the predictive power of Google is really good. So I actually find this really useful, and I think that a lot of students will use it as a resource. I think it's a great initiative for Google, and I was looking at the site today, and I could see high school students all the way through. They could add like graduate students or people switching careers. I think that there's a lot of ways they could go with this and have a lot of different services that a lot of people will like, and then in turn they could fine-tune their algorithms more and then build upon their business. So I actually think this is helpful for a lot of different reasons.
And I think also maybe the next turn and try with social, as I mean, with Orchid, they haven't been in the end so successful. With Google Plus, we have to see. but maybe having a smaller group of users, so taking students, and as you said, they also have the opportunity to communicate. So yeah, might actually be a user group happy about such an offer, who is going to adapt and adopt it quickly. And therefore, on the other hand, yes, I think Google can learn things to, as you said, refine their algorithms, and also to refine their social strategy, maybe. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, then, so that's controversial for me. YouTube for schools. Okay.
Right.
And in Gadget Quote, I think that hits the nail quite well, for me, quite well. So in the VHS era, teachers had control, but now it's a minefield. And I mean, of course, we all know what's going on YouTube, how people use it, comment trolls, and so on. So a curated portal, no comments enabled, no related videos, so very, stripped down and more basic, focusing on education. I think on the one hand, it's good to give teachers this at hand, so that they can really work with it, and also, I think getting more attracted to, in a safe way, to this field of video consumption, using this in the classroom in a meaningful way. On the other hand, I'm not so much a friend of this artificially guiding somebody and telling somebody that's how you have to use it, and no other possibilities you don't have. And I mean, every kid today knows how to use YouTube, so yes, there's the potential risk that they would use this YouTube for schools in the same way, maybe, which is not the maybe ideal way in terms of education or for the teachers. On the other hand, and I know that in general dedicated social networks in K-12 are also popular, I always ask myself, do the students only use it because it's suggested or wanted by the teachers and they have to make their homeworks based upon it, or is it okay for them, and do they really want to use it this way themselves and then be in their free time, be on Facebook, for example, or be on the normal YouTube?
Well, the stripped down YouTube, I could see why they did it. Obviously, you don't want a random video to pop up with inappropriate material. However, I don't know if I necessarily think that each kid should be independently on it all the time. I could see it integrated into a lesson, let's say, and maybe put on a projector. Though I also am not sure how I feel about the reliance on YouTube videos as a source of, I guess, teaching content. So I saw that some of the examples were, let's say, science experiments or like TED Talks, let's say, which are great, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily an optimal use of classroom time because it's so limited and precious. And so that's one of the topics where I think we have to walk the fine line between reliance on technology and then maximizing the potential of the technology. So I could see it being used really well to supplement existing curricula, and of course a skilled teacher will know how to do that very well. But I also don't want to see it used as a kind of a crutch for like filler material. Yeah,
I think maybe outside the classroom, we could, or teachers could use it in the way of, prepare yourselves by watching this video for then our classroom activity or a lecture, so that you have a certain basis, and then we can really already take something as given and everybody has the standard. And although at present teachers can of course not be 100% sure if everybody watched the video, but let's say they did, and then the teacher can really focus on parts that are probably more fun to him or herself than the simple basics, or explaining the basics first, and then the students may also have more fun when it's getting more sophisticated or engaging, or they engage in a discussion, for example. Although I also ask myself if there are enough good educational videos, if the resources are basically enough to provide teachers in various different subjects with solid educational videos that are also in a course. Because mostly when people put something on Facebook, and I think even teachers, I don't know if they go on for a very long time and really build a video course with different, like a sequence of educational videos around one topic, so that you really can, that you could really rely on a solid basis. So
right.
I think,
so
yeah.
Maybe I haven't read it, but it's also unclear how they vet the material. So like, what are the criteria? They said they have 300 teacher-friendly playlists, but I would like to see how they rated them, what's considered educational, what's considered not. So if there was an obvious system that worked, I think I could maybe get on board more. But right now, it seems mostly subjective. So I think that it's a good idea, but there's some work left to be done.
Definitely. We had, in Paris this week, we had the UNESCO week on mobile learning, so it was partly a closed event and partly also open. And according to recent data, says that 90% of the world's population now have access to mobile networks. And so prompting growing enthusiasm for the potential of mobile devices to improve education access and quality. So the UNESCO also worked together with Nokia. So for me, Nokia also has to sort of catch up with their new smartphone, as it has apparently a lower price compared with an iPhone, but not all Android phones. So maybe it's their entry in the smartphone market and get some more people like Technorati and so on as customers. Of course, we shouldn't ignore that Nokia is still very big and has massive customer bases in the developing countries. So it was maybe a good partner actually to team up for this week on mobile learning. What do you think is the potential of mobile for education? And I mean, you work in a company that does or that develops applications, so mobile applications to learn with for iPad. Maybe not everybody has an iPad yet, but give me your take on the potential of mobile learning in general.
Okay, well, I can look at it from, I guess, the developing nation standpoint as well as our current. So obviously we believe that mobile learning has a huge potential to revolutionize the existing educational system, but then going to developing nations, I think we actually have to go way back and start with SMS, because that's a huge way of communication in developing nations still, and they might not have smartphones, but if 90% of developing nations have mobile access, they have SMS. So I think a number of startups, even around here, are focused on classroom, like text messaging services, a lot of the free group messaging apps are really popular right now. So I think that if we're going to be in developing nations, that's going to be a huge way that educators, teachers, whomever can communicate with large groups of people. So I think that this has a huge potential at that very, very basic level of mass messaging that maybe that right now us in Silicon Valley don't think of automatically when we think of mobile learning. So like simple messaging can actually, you can distribute really important messages that way. And then at the higher level, when, if Nokia is developing a more affordable smartphone for people in developing nations, I think there's a huge potential for that. We are looking at some developing nations right now, and a lot of our apps are not fully compatible with the phones that a lot of the people use in countries like in Southeast Asia, for example. So I think that developers, especially those with a social mission, should really pay attention to what the technology is, realize that mobile is huge, but not only at the application level on a smartphone. So I think the future in mobile learning in developing nations is SMS.
I definitely agree. I think in the developed world, and personally, I enjoy using the iPad for, of course, media consumption, but also learning. And I'm a big believer in its potential for learning and education, even public education in our developed nations. I think you're very rightly saying that in the developing countries it must and will be based on text messaging for still quite some years. And do you think, because I sometimes hear very interesting stories, what can actually be done when you are creative and you only have simple technology? However, I heard that several different African nations are basically handling their payments now based on their mobile phones, but very simple mobile phones. So do you think that we always go for the next new big thing and always want the implementation in the next device and see what's possible and move on so quickly that we may leave out actually chances to use and build more on existing technology and just use it in a more creative way that it had been done before?
I think that where I work and then my community probably is more focused on the future. And so I think there is a possibility that we're leaving a large market behind because we're so focused on the next big thing. So if you read, I think, Sarah Lacy's book about developing economies, she actually goes into depth about these exact issues. And so I think it's really important to think about, I guess, the wide reach that you could have. But at that level, we're not talking about games where you flip your iPad upside down and do things like that, but there's also a lot of possibilities just with simple text messaging or things that are less obvious to us when we're faced with, I guess, the really innovative new gadgets around here.
Yeah, I think she immersed herself into really this situation and spent a good part, or at least several months, this year or last year in Africa to learn about this. Yeah. Okay. Talking about mobile learning, I want to thank our sponsor for this week. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Do social learning on mobile devices, and this is both iOS and Android. They have currently 11 different language courses developed in collaboration with the American Council on Teaching of Foreign Languages. And you should check them out if you are into language learning in combination with social. pay them a visit to their website, and definitely over here at EDUKWEST we want to thank them for their support of Review Ed and EDUKWEST in general. Okay, so our next topic is the free college textbooks in California. A bill is proposed that allocates 25 million euros of state covers to create 50 online college book titles that teachers can use, but also remix, add to, and edit as they basically see it fits their teaching. And so California state legislature is pushing for colleges to open to free educational resources. And do you think, Alicia, it's mainly due to the tight budgets and the budget cuts, because they could have done it before? And it seems, to what I've read, that California seems to be in a very difficult situation. Or do you think, let's look at it from the positive angle, that they see it's time and that they are ready and they will be able to make it happen to not only have a fixed textbook, but something that can be remixed and edited, and something can be added? Isn't that what we would want as teachers?
Well, I read the article about there's different viewpoints. There's the teachers, there's the government, then there's, the faculty or researchers that actually write the textbooks. So I guess I'll try to cover all of those bases. California is definitely in a state of crisis in higher ed, and then probably all through K-12. I saw a little bit of it as I was leaving graduate school, but I left California for a couple years. And it's gotten actually much worse in the last couple of years. So I definitely think it's a response to the budget crisis. Faculty are losing their jobs. Adjuncts basically can't get jobs. Tuition has skyrocketed, and obviously books and supplies are really expensive. So I can see the push for open source editing textbooks, having them either inexpensive or even free, but then when does it turn into a wiki where anyone can go in and say whatever they want? And obviously, I know that I've been thinking a lot about keeping science clean and making sure that the findings are interpreted correctly. So as a scientist, I would be wary of people going in and editing topics for, let's say, an intro biology textbook or even psychology textbook. But at the same time, back to what I was saying about the YouTube channels, if there were a system where there could be real-time peer review or something like that and make it more like a traditional textbook writing, then perhaps we could come up with some solution that's affordable, accurate, and have some kind of standard. So I could see it all of the ways. But then again, the publishing industry is also in crisis. So how do we help the authors, the teachers, the students, and I guess the state and the schools, and maximize, allow people to do what they need to, whether it's support themselves in their research or get a college degree or balance the state budget. There are a lot of questions remaining, but I could see both pros and cons here.
I think, as you mentioned before, a lot of different groups are involved. They all have their own motivations and interests, and I also think about the difficulty to define. Okay, so what are the 50 college textbooks. I mean, you can study a plethora of things. So already deciding on 50 books only, I think the budget therefore is quite high. I'm not I'm not educated about how much it actually costs to produce a textbook. So for the Pearsons of this world, but for me, 25 million for 50 books sounds a lot. But yeah, I guess, as you said, having transparency, but on the other hand also clear like guidelines at least, or even restrictions how this has to be done to maintain the quality, of course, needs to be implemented. And then as always, is very new, so we have to see what they do with it. But yeah, I think, of course, open educational resources, what we have seen at MIT and so on, can be really good. But as you said, when it then like breaks down to an individual college teacher modifying everything, we have to see how this can be done and still keep the quality up. And good, then we stay in the terms, or in the topic of teaching career. So the MAT at USC schools, so or several schools in or universities in California, and the partnership with Tutor to launch Teach.com, and Teach.com is designed to be, on the one hand, a career portal for aspiring teachers. Then also when you are in the teaching career and maybe want to change state or want to see what your options are in going into a little bit a different direction in the career. So basically having all the resources in one portal and learning when I want to become a teacher. So learning in a step-by-step process, how does it work in my individual state, where I am, what do I have to do, where do I get the documents, or where do I have to address myself. So useful addresses, also teacher profiles, like inspiring teachers, why are they still so proud of being in education, and so what do they do which is maybe a little bit different from what the average teacher does, so why are they so successful, and a blog. So again, this aspect of curating all relevant and important information and having it in one portal. Is it something useful? How complicated is the system in the US actually? Because for us, in a European, or from the European perspective, certainly it is also a little bit of a challenge to get everything together and be really perfectly, let's say, informed. But it's much easier as it's usually centralized, and not each of the 50 states can not do what they want, but can have their own system.
Yeah, so what I do know about the state system for teacher certification, I think it does differ between states, and it also sometimes differs by grade level and subject. Mm-hmm. So I think I like that Teach.com has been kind of vetted and is partnered with USC, which is obviously one of the great colleges of education here. And I read in the description that they took a lot of time to make sure that they were caught up with all of the current technology and developments across all of the states. So I think that they didn't push it out too early, which is always a question if you're looking for a resource, you just want to get something up there. So I think they were pretty careful with how they put it together. So I could see this being really helpful. And obviously I'm a huge proponent of getting better and more STEM teachers out in the world, because that's where the innovation is, and that's where we really need to kind of encourage our kids to pursue these fields. So all in all, yeah, I think it's a great initiative. I like that there's a strong university backing. I like that the information's available and you can also network that way. I don't necessarily think it's exhaustive, but I think it's a really great start.
I think it's a great start as well, and is also one of the nice and quite rare examples of a tutor as a although big but startup company working together with a college in education. So having the higher ed world working together with the startup world, and I think if you do it in a careful way, and from my interviews, I know that they took their time, as of course they had to overcome the obvious not prejudices, but raised eyebrows from the higher ed field. And so to do something online, is it really then something meaningful and also something engaging? And they wanted to have something simple on the one hand, however, also something that is designed to fulfill like the latest standards, so not something boring maybe. And the startup company on the other side, of course, when you're in the startup mentality, you're much more used to do things at a faster pace. So I think that's an interesting collaboration and dynamics, and I hope we will see that more in the future, that both fields or sectors, that we see them actually benefiting from. I think universities do great research, and startups don't always take this enough into consideration and work with the data and the findings, for example. And also the higher ed world benefiting from actually innovation and spirit from the startup world. So I think that's a great thing. So our last topic for this episode is that Google joins with Seattle Angels to bankroll non-profit education microloans startup Vitana. And do you know a little bit what Vitana does, Alicia?
Yes, I looked at their website today. Microloans for education in developing nations. I really like this a lot. So education in developing nations is something that actually strikes a chord with me personally. So my mom is from Vietnam. She only went to 6th grade. It was definitely a financial issue. And given the opportunity, I'm sure she would have loved to be able to take advantage of something like this. So I think that this is another example of Google really going into a more social change kind of role and provide things for people across the world. So I think it's important, especially for us in like the cutting edge Silicon Valley world, to really think about like the world at large and like the little things that we can do to help individuals in other circumstances.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and I even like Vitana enough to make a loan myself. So I think that's right, that when you realize how much you can do with a loan of $25, or if you want $50, and really help a person along with their educational career. And I also like how the profiles are done, so the milestones the students want or young professionals want to achieve, and where you can realize what they can do with $1,000 or $2,000, which is sometimes really, when you see the big jump they can make with then having this degree or diploma, I think is very is incredible and very exciting. And I'm personally very happy that Vitana obtained this this loan from, or this grant from the Seattle Angels and from Google. And yeah, I think when you are in the situation Google is, but maybe some more of us in the developed countries, and then to take a certain, maybe little, can be on a very like personal level, social responsibility is something, at least for me, very satisfying and very nice to do.
Yep, it doesn't take very much to make a large difference, really. So I think this is a great thing.
And I have to thank you so much that you took the time and gave us your ideas and feelings on the various topics we have had today. And I hope it was fun for you today as well, and gave you sort of an impression how your own video interviews, of course in a much more specific sense, but how they are going to happen.
Great, yes, I did. It was a great time. Thanks for having me.